There is the rumor that each person involuntarily swallows 8 spiders in their sleep over the course of their life. Maybe it's even 20, or it is 8 spiders every year, which would accumulate to a lot of spiders over your lifetime. The numbers differ so widely because the whole story is wrong. It's factually incorrect in almost every conceivable aspect. So, on the one hand, I want to use this opportunity to correct these facts and show you that spiders are immensely fascinating creatures. On the other hand, I'm interested in examining how this urban legend could become so big. There are several layers of irony here, and each one of them can help us understand the mechanisms of belief, the consequences of misinformation, and the fascinating world of spiders that is all too often obscured by falsehoods. Whatever version of the spider swallowing story you have heard, it is wrong. There is no single serious documented case of such an occurrence. And just think about how an experiment would have to look like that tries to test this hypothesis. You would have to videotape a lot of people during their sleep, ideally in their home, for a couple of months, and then analyze every single video frame to see if a spider wanders into the person's mouth. Even if you would get the funding for this study, the hypothesis would still contradict everything we know about humans and spiders. For a spider to get into your mouth, it would have to walk across your body and your face, and that alone might in most cases be sufficient to wake you up. Even if you don't, you probably sleep with your mouth closed for the most of the night. Even if your mouth is open, people tend to swallow only rarely during their sleep, and even if you were to accidentally swallow a spider, you most certainly would wake up. All this, however, begs the question why a spider would want to walk into your mouth. The fundamental biology of spiders has not changed for at least 300 million years, so it seems questionable whether they could have attained such evolutionary success while also being prone to nocturnal suicide strolls. In fact, spiders are far more sophisticated creatures than they're publicly being credited for. Most spiders have poor eyesight, with notable exceptions being the wolf spider and the jumping spider. Instead, their legs are equipped with sensory organs that can do pretty much everything. They can smell, taste, sense air movements, vibrations, electrical charge differences, as well as temperature and humidity. Especially their sense of vibration shows absolute sensitivities at the limit of the physically possible and can detect the most minute vibrations on the scale of nanometers. Now combine this with the fact that spiders tend to avoid predators, and then think about how it would feel like to be an animal this sensitive. If your feet are this tingly, the last thing you would probably want to do is to climb into the mouth of a giant human being that is constantly causing earthquakes through breathing, moving, and most likely snoring. Now that we have established that the story is false, let's see if we can find out where it came from. All the sites that cover this topic refer either directly or indirectly to this Snopes article. Snopes is a large and well-regarded fact-checking site, and in 2001 they took on the spider topic. Snopes traced the story back to an article from Lisa Birgit-Holst published in 1993 in PC Professional. According to Snopes, Holtz wanted to show how gullible people can be and thus created a list of ridiculous made-up facts. This list also included a spider story, which she took from a section about common misbeliefs in a 1954 book on insect folklore. Thanks to her article, this fact then took on a life of its own. This is the story that is repeated by many sites across the internet, even by reputable sources such as Britannica. The problem, however, is that there are several aspects of the story that are suspicious. The 1954 book does exist, yet there is no mention of the spider story, neither on the cited page nor anywhere else. This makes sense, since it is a book about insect folklore, and as the book itself tells you on page 2, spiders are not insects. The next problem is that neither the article nor the PC Professional magazine seem to exist. There are quite a number of great sources out there that have tried unsuccessfully to trace them down, so if you're interested in the details, the links to all these sources are below the video. These sources also cast doubt on the existence of the author Lisa Birgit-Holst. Not only is she nowhere to be found, but her name is also a perfect anagram for "this is a big troll." This is just one of several possible anagrams, among which are gems like tribal oil sites, gorilla shit bits, and abolish girl tits, yet the first version seems to be the most apt. All of this was officially confirmed in 2021 when Snopes released this statement in which they admitted that the 1993 article does not exist, that the anagram was intentional, and that their article was meant to be an Easter egg to stress that, even on a fact-checking site, you shouldn't just blindly believe everything you read. Just to be clear, the Snopes article from 2001 did not invent the spider swallowing story. 2 years earlier, it makes an appearance in a Guardian article, and the earliest reference I could find is this 1992 article, but the story most certainly predates these sources. So, in conclusion, we have an immensely popular story that is entirely false. We have an origin story, repeated time and again across the internet, that centers around the demonstration that people are way too gullible. And this origin story is also false, and thereby demonstrates that people are indeed way too gullible. And finally, even after all this, we have no idea where the spider story originally came from. As confusing and unsatisfying as all of this is, it can teach us a lot about the spread of misinformation and how we form our opinions. I think that the main reason why the story could become so popular, despite being completely false, has to do with the fact that people are afraid of spiders. 5% of the population are affected by arachnophobia, which makes it the most common animal-related phobia, and maybe you're yourself among those who don't feel well in the presence of spiders. As several studies suggest, the fear of spiders is much greater than the fear of related animals, and humans might indeed have an evolved preparedness for developing fear of such ancestral threats. Another main reason for the spread of the spider swallowing story might be the illusory truth effect. This effect states that if it is easy for you to process an information, for example because you've heard it before or maybe just because it is written in a clearly legible font, you're more likely to believe that it is true, regardless of its actual veracity. If you take these two aspects together, the fear of spiders and the illusory truth effect, you have a recipe for successful misinformation and fake news. The human brain strongly reacts to stories about fear and disgust, which is why they are at the center of many false stories. A story about involuntarily swallowing spiders is disgusting and thus interesting. It speaks to our primal fears, and therefore people want to share the story with others. Then the illusory truth effect sets in. The more often we hear the story, the more true it seems to be. We feel more confident in sharing the story, and from there on, it may spread exponentially and reach far more people than the truth. Once a false story is as popular as our spider story, it can be almost impossible to correct it. Of course, these mechanisms don't just apply to our spider swallowing story, but to spiders in general. Several studies show that half or maybe even more media articles about spiders contain errors, and 30 to 40% are sensationalist. This is problematic because it systematically distorts our view of spiders. Despite their fearsome reputation, spiders are usually not aggressive, and less than 0.5% of all spider species can be classified as dangerous. It is true that almost all spiders have venom, yet this venom is meant to hunt prey, not to hurt humans. All spiders whose body length is below 10 mm have fangs that are too small to penetrate human skin, and even if they are big enough, they probably won't bite you, or they have a venom that cannot hurt you. In case you actually do get bitten by a dangerous spider, there is still a good chance that they bite without injecting their venom. Although the statistics are unreliable, it seems that the yearly number of deaths caused by spiders worldwide is vanishingly small and in the range of single digits. If you don't believe me, just look up how deadly the most deadly spiders really are. The Sydney funnelweb spider, which holds the Guinness World Record for the most venomous spider in the world, has not killed one single person since the introduction of an anti-venom in 1981. The Brazilian wandering spider usually bites without injecting its venom and has caused less than 10 deaths in the last 100 years. And even the various black widow species, such as the redback spider or the southern black widow, have caused little to no deaths in the last decades. Not only are spiders far less dangerous than commonly believed, but they're also far more fascinating creatures than they're commonly being credited for. They come in so many different forms and shapes and colors, and some of them are actually quite cute. This, for example, is a jumping spider, a group of spiders with phenomenal eyesight and astonishing mental capacities, especially considering their minute size. They can plan their hunting routes in advance, they have a sense of numerosity, they can relearn what they have previously learned, and they can creatively adjust their behavior to new situations. Some jumping spiders even use mimicry tactics. They tap on the webs of other spiders to imitate struggling prey, and once the resident spider is lured in, the jumping spider will eat it. There are so many fascinating things to learn about spiders, and if you're interested, there are several articles and videos that I really liked linked in the description. While researching this video, I have learned so much about spiders, and I have noticed how this new knowledge has greatly influenced my view of these little animals. I wouldn't say that I'm totally comfortable around them, but this newborn fascination of mine has definitely decreased my fears and worries. I think this is the main lesson that I take away from this video. Beneath all the sensationalist reports about swallowing spiders or exaggerated claims about their dangerousness, there is so much about these animals that deserves our attention and curiosity. And this is not just because they are incredibly diverse and smart and occasionally cute, it is also because all species have innate value and require our care and conservation. However, since aesthetics is an important factor in our decision on which animals deserve our love and protection, spiders are still largely underrepresented in global and regional conservation policies. So much of our behavior towards spiders is driven by fear, a fear that, as I've shown before, is largely unfounded and exaggerated. And this is sad because we risk losing so much fascination and so much wonder without even realizing it. However, the first step to realizing it might be as simple as understanding that spiders are far too clever and far too sophisticated to let themselves be voluntarily swallowed by us.